Hello class, this is a short video to get us started in flipped learning for our course. You should have all received the course outline through email with the meeting dates and the learning goals for this course. It is also available on Moodle. Just log into Moodle with your student username and you will see it. In this course, we are going to learn about development as a concept that guides change around the world. But we are going to focus on poverty in the so-called developing world, because when you are an ethnologist, anthropologist, or social scientist, you are going to be talking to and looking at the lives of people, rather than creating better agriculture, or environmental preservation, or disease prevention, or economic policies. It's good to know about those, but social scientists focus on people in society. So focusing on people means understanding what are the biggest problems in their lives, from their perspective. And this is why I have chosen poverty as the focus of this course. Because if you ask a person from any developing country about the problems they face, if they are not coming from the richest, most elite group in that country, then poverty isn't interwoven into all the answers they will give you. So the aim in our course is not to ask about how we can measure poverty in the world, or which country is the poorest, because there are already a lot of international organizations such as World Bank and the United Nations that are doing just that. What our aim is to understand why, to understand the causes of poverty. Let's talk for a moment about the word developing countries. Other words used for these countries are third world or global south. These are economies that were supposed to develop in a direction that would help them catch up with the wealthier economies of the global north, Europe, North America, Japan, but in fact they are usually struggling, not growing. In many ways their economies are even shrinking, and the people who live in them might see their lives as going backward, away from what they consider modernity. The concept of development has of course been criticized. Who says that these countries and economies should become like wealthier countries in the world? Why can't they go in whatever direction they want? The reason is global capitalism. They need to be part of the market where richer countries buy and sell, so that the richer countries have someone to sell their stuff to. For the persons running developing countries, they also need to attract global investors to keep their countries running. And the only way they can do that is to market themselves as developing in a direction valued and recognized by richer countries. We will talk more about this in the lectures. In this course, we are going to focus on Africa. The reason is first, this happens to be the area I know the most about, but also because over $500 billion has been given to Africa. But all of this money together has not produced economic growth or reduced poverty in Africa, even though the continent of Africa has the world's greatest mineral riches. Why is this happening? Because a lot of money flows out of Africa, and a lot more flows out than flows in. Yes, Africa is giving us money. Reports suggest that the West and the global North are still looting Africa and are still engaged in post-colonial plunder. The money that flows out is because of the interest on debts that African countries have to pay to the World Bank, because multinational companies hide their profits through tax avoidance and corruption and don't give back to the societies from whom they are taking gold, oil, cotton, and other agricultural products, and because multinational companies are illegally fishing or logging forests in Africa. The example of Africa, which is of course a huge continent with 54 different countries on it, helps us understand the two different models or paradigms that I'm going to talk about for why people in the world are poor. The first is the neoliberal model, in which poverty is seen to be the fault of the poor themselves. The neoliberal model says that even though we may try to help them, the poor are lazy or corrupt, or don't save money, don't invest their savings, or have the wrong culture, so they cannot get ahead, etc. We'll come back to neoliberalism in their lectures, so just remember this for now. Neoliberalism is a broad term that refers to policies in which the market is supposed to organize society, instead of the state organizing society. In the 1970s, the world economy slowed down, and in the 1980s, this was blamed on huge government spending. The neoliberalist policies of the 1980s were used in the conservative administrations of Ronald Reagan in the US and Margaret Thatcher in the United Kingdom. But the market, it turns out, is not a free zone where everyone is equal. It is biased against some groups, like women, and biased against some countries. You got it, the developing countries. This leads us to the second explanation of poverty, which is the structural model, in which political and economic systems are seen to be unfairly organized from the beginning and discriminate against disadvantaged groups. Mainstream neoliberal-oriented ideas of poverty within the development industry, and yes, development is an industry employing a lot of people. These ideas still assume that with startup capital and the right training in starting a small business, households can escape poverty. Structural explanations of poverty, on the other hand, see poverty not as an individual problem, but as a set of social relations in which power, wealth, and opportunities are distributed unequally. As Professor Ananya Roy tells us, to understand why the poor are poor, we must understand why the rich are rich. In other words, we need to trace out the decisions and policies which channel resources and privileges to certain groups and not to others. So with this in mind, I ask you to read the two articles as pre-readings before the course begins. One of them is mine, and that one was published in both English and Finnish. While you are reading, I want you to think about what these articles say about the causes of poverty. On Moodle, I will also have questions for you to think about in advance, and we will discuss them in class. So these will be in Moodle, so please let me know well in advance if you cannot find them there. I look forward to seeing you in the class.